when Swarnlata Mishra was born in 1948 in Shahpura, a small village in Madhya Pradesh state. No one could have imagined that this little girl would soon recall memories that challenge everything we think we know about death and consciousness. Her parents, who were members of a simple, traditional Hindu family, were not prepared for what they would soon have to hear from their little daughter. Swarnlata's father, M.L. Mishra, was a district administrative worker who frequently moved due to his job. The family lived in modest but harmonious circumstances. Her mother was a housewife who raised her children according to traditional Hindu values. No one suspected that this peaceful family picture would soon change due to a little girl's extraordinary claims. As early as 2 years old, Swarnlata began saying strange things, first only in fragments, then in increasingly detailed accounts of a life she claimed to have lived before. Initially, the parents didn't attach particular significance to their little girl's words. Every child fantasizes, they thought to themselves. But as Swarnlata grew older, her memories became increasingly detailed and consistent. By the age of 3, she was already mentioning specific names, places, and events from a previous life. She claimed that she had been a woman named Biya who lived in the city of Katni, approximately 120 kilometers from Shahpura. The little girl described her house in Katni, a 2-story white building with a well in its courtyard. She spoke of her husband, whom she called Pandit Kedarnath Chauba, and also mentioned 2 sons. She could describe the layout of the house in particular detail, the placement of furniture, and even where they kept their money. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatry professor at the University of Virginia, who was then beginning his pioneering research work on childhood reincarnation memories, soon learned of Swarnlata's case. "This was one of the most convincing cases I had ever encountered," the professor later stated, who dedicated more than 3 decades to the scientific investigation of similar phenomena. When Swarnlata turned 6, the family decided to investigate their little girl's claims. M.L. Mishra, who was initially skeptical, finally gave in to his wife's urging and set out for Katni to discover whether there was any truth to his daughter's words. In Katni, Mr. Mishra found the family of Pandit Kedarnath Chauba. The man indeed lived there and had had a wife named Biya who died in 1939, 4 years before Swarnlata's birth. The description of the house that Swarnlata had given matched reality perfectly. When Mr. Mishra returned to Shahpura and reported his discoveries, the family decided to take Swarnlata to Katni. The meeting, which took place in 1963, was extraordinary. The little girl immediately recognized Kedarnath's widowed brother, Hari Prasad, and accurately described the changes that had been made to the house since Biya's death. Swarnlata knew that the family had rearranged a room and placed a new cabinet in the bedroom, Dr. Stevenson documented. This information was not common knowledge, and it would have been impossible for an outsider to know about it. The little girl not only recognized the house but also personal objects. She showed where Biya had kept her money in an old iron box and remembered that the woman had hidden gold jewelry in a secret place. When family members checked these locations, they found the items exactly where Swarnlata had indicated. Kedarnath was initially distrustful, but when Swarnlata told personal details about their married life that only Biya could have known, he became convinced that something extraordinary was happening. The little girl knew that Kedarnath's leg had been injured in an accident and that he had walking difficulties. The family had never shared this information with outsiders. Dr. Stevenson began a detailed investigation. He traveled to India 8 times to study Swarnlata's case. He carefully checked every claim, interviewed every witness separately, and meticulously documented everything. Swarnlata made a total of 48 specific statements about her previous life, Dr. Stevenson wrote in his scientific report. Of these, 42 proved to be accurate. This is a 91% hit rate, which is statistically almost impossible in case of random coincidence. The little girl preserved not only memories, but also behavioral habits. In Biya's life, she infinitely loved bhajan singing, Hindu religious songs. Swarnlata already knew bhajan songs at age 3 that she had never learned and that were unknown in her family. These were songs that Biya loved and frequently sang. At age 5, the child sang melodies that were unknown in the family, Dr. Stevenson noted. When these songs were later sung in Katni, Biya's family immediately recognized them as the woman's favorite bhajans. Swarnlata could also dance in a special style that she had never learned. This dance was characteristic of Biya's homeland, but was completely unknown in Swarnlata's family circle. The little girl moved naturally in these dance figures, as if she had practiced for years. Dr. Stevenson conducted psychological tests with Swarnlata and compared her with other children. The results were surprising. Swarnlata's intelligence quotient significantly exceeded the average for her age, the researcher wrote. Her memory and linguistic skills were particularly developed. The little girl's personality also showed interesting features. According to Biya's characteristics, she was a kind but stubborn woman who insisted on having her way. Swarnlata also showed these same traits. She was kind and helpful, but if she set her mind on something, it was difficult to dissuade her. Join those who are open to life's greatest mysteries. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest spiritual discoveries. Biya's life was not easy. She was born in 1927 into a poor Brahmin family. She married Kedarnath, who was a local priest, and they had 2 sons, Murli and Naresh. Biya stayed home, cared for the children, and managed the household while her husband performed religious ceremonies in the area. The woman's health gradually deteriorated. She suffered from a throat disease that progressively worsened. In 1939, at the age of 35, she died. Her death came suddenly. One morning, she simply didn't wake up. The family later learned that a heart attack had taken her. The timing of Swarnlata's birth shows a peculiar coincidence with Biya's death. The little girl was born in 1956, 6 years after Biya's death. According to research, this is a typical time frame in reincarnation cases. The median time between death and rebirth generally ranges between 2 and 10 years. It's as if there's a waiting period, Dr. Stevenson explained. In most cases, rebirth doesn't occur immediately. Something happens between the 2 lives that children sometimes talk about. Swarnlata indeed spoke about what happened after Biya's death. She said she was in a dark place where other people were also present. She remembered waiting. Then a lamplight led her to a new family. This description resembles those near-death experiences that adults report. Dr. Stevenson later discovered that Swarnlata's memories extended beyond just Biya's life. The little girl also remembered an even earlier life in which she lived as Kamlesh in Sylhet, in what is now Bangladesh. This discovery made the case even more complex. Swarnlata claimed that as Kamlesh, she lived in a wealthy family and died at age 9 from a snake bite. Dr. Stevenson found this family as well, and the details were again stunningly accurate. The little girl knew the layout of the house, the names of family members, and various personal details. This was the first documented case where a child remembered 2 separate previous lives, Dr. Stevenson wrote. Swarnlata's case showed that reincarnation might be an even more complex phenomenon than we previously thought. The connection between the 2 previous lives was also interesting. Kamlesh's family moved from Sylhet to near Katni when the little girl died. There they met Biya's family, and a friendship developed between them. According to Dr. Stevenson, this could explain why Swarnlata remembered both lives. Swarnlata's abilities went beyond memories. The little girl possessed healing abilities that had also manifested in Biya's life. Biya was known for being able to treat illnesses with home remedies, especially childhood diseases. At age 5, Swarnlata began giving advice about sick children. She knew which medicinal plants to use for different diseases, and these recommendations often proved effective. Her parents were initially worried, but when they saw that their daughter was helping others, they accepted her special abilities. The little girl knew plants she had never learned about, Dr. Stevenson said. She couldn't have acquired this knowledge in her current life. It had to come from somewhere else. Dr. Stevenson also conducted genetic tests to rule out the possibility of blood relations between the families. The results were clear. No genetic connection could be detected between Swarnlata's family and Biya's family. The two families came from completely different areas and had never had contact before Swarnlata's birth. The researcher also conducted psychological examinations on the affected family members to rule out the possibility of conscious deception. Every family member underwent detailed interviews and psychological tests separately. The results showed that no one tried to deceive the researcher. Both families consisted of simple, honest people who had no motivation for deception, Dr. Stevenson wrote. Moreover, the psychological profiles showed no traits that would indicate fraud or pathological fantasizing. As Swarnlata grew, her memories gradually began to fade. This is a typical pattern in reincarnation cases. After age 6, she spoke less frequently about her previous lives, and by age 8, she could only remember the most important memories. Children generally lose these memories between ages 5 and 10, Dr. Stevenson explained. It's as if the current life's personality gradually takes control, and the previous life's memories recede into the background. In Swarnlata's case, this process was particularly interesting because the little girl made a conscious decision about which memories she wanted to keep. She told her parents that she didn't want to forget Biya's children, and indeed, these memories persisted longer than the others. Dr. Stevenson followed Swarnlata's development for decades. As a young adult, the girl still remembered some details from her previous lives, although these were already fainter. It was particularly interesting that certain emotions and inclinations remained. As an adult, Swarnlata still loved bhajan, singing and dancing, and continued to be interested in healing. She pursued medical studies and later became a pediatrician. Her career choice showed a close connection to Biya's healing activities. Swarnlata's story shows that certain aspects of personality can survive physical death, Dr. Stevenson wrote in one of his last studies. Skills, interests, and even career choices can be transferred from one life to another. The family relationships also remained special. Swarnlata continued to maintain contact with Biya's family, who treated her almost like their own daughter. Kedarnath's widowed brother, Hari Prasad, frequently visited Swarnlata, and the little girl also regularly traveled to Katni. It was as if two families had united around one child, M.L. Mishra told Dr. Stevenson. Swarnlata felt at home in both families, and both families loved her. This relationship continued into adulthood. Swarnlata married and had children, but continued to visit her other family in Katni. Biya's sons, Murli and Naresh, who featured in Swarnlata's memories, also maintained contact with her. Dr. Stevenson's research on Swarnlata's case was published in several scientific journals, and the case became one of the most comprehensively documented reincarnation stories in the literature. The researcher published more than 60 pages of detailed analysis about the case. Swarnlata's case provides evidence that cannot be explained by traditional psychological or biological theories, Dr. Stevenson wrote in his summary. The reincarnation hypothesis remains the most likely explanation for the observed phenomena. Naturally, there were skeptics as well. Some argued that Swarnlata had somehow accessed information about Biya's life, perhaps from indirect sources. Others suggested that random coincidence and selective memory could explain the seemingly accurate memories. Dr. Stevenson examined every possible alternative explanation. He checked family connections, geographical distances, communication possibilities, and even the role of local legends. He found none of them sufficient to explain the observed phenomena. The skeptics have no alternative theory that can explain all the evidence, Dr. Stevenson replied to his critics. Until there is a better explanation, the reincarnation hypothesis must be taken seriously. Swarnlata's case was also studied by other researchers. Dr. Satwant Pasricha, a researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, conducted numerous independent investigations and confirmed Dr. Stevenson's findings. Swarnlata's case is one of the most reliable reincarnation cases ever documented, Dr. Pasricha wrote. The evidence is so compelling that it's difficult to ignore. Modern neurology also sheds new light on such cases. Research on the nature of consciousness increasingly suggests that consciousness is not limited exclusively to the brain. Some theories propose that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, similar to mass or energy. Dr. Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiology professor at the University of Arizona, and Sir Roger Penrose, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, jointly theorized that consciousness operates at the quantum mechanical level. This could explain how memories and personality can be transferred from one body to another. If consciousness is indeed a quantum mechanical phenomenon, then it can survive the death of the physical body, Dr. Hameroff speculates. This opens new possibilities for the scientific understanding of reincarnation phenomena. Swarnlata's case not only supports the possibility of reincarnation, but also raises questions about the nature of human identity. If personality, memories, and skills can be transferred from one life to another, then what makes a person themselves? What is it that remains continuous through change? These questions transcend religious dogmas and scientific paradigms. They point toward a new understanding that integrates ancient wisdom and modern science. Swarnlata's story is such a bridge that connects these seemingly opposing worldviews. The little girl's adult life was also instructive. During her medical career, she healed many children and often applied treatments that combined traditional and modern elements. According to her colleagues, she had special intuition in pediatrics. As a doctor, Swarnlata also preserved the natural healing abilities she had shown as a child, one of her colleagues recounted. She knew things about sick children that couldn't have been learned from scientific examinations. Dr. Stevenson followed Swarnlata's life until his death in 2007. In their last conversations, the now adult woman confirmed that she still remembered some details from her previous lives, although these were already faint and fragmentary. "I can't exactly explain what happened to me in my childhood," Swarnlata told Dr. Stevenson, "but I know something special occurred. These experiences shaped my life, and I'm grateful for them." Subscribe so you don't miss the latest spiritual stories and research results. The mysteries of reincarnation are still waiting to be discovered. Swarnlata's story continues to inspire researchers and those who are open to the hidden dimensions of reality today. The case suggests that our existence is much more complex and wonderful than traditional science can explain. The little girl's memories speak not only of past events, but also of the continuity of consciousness, of something that remains after physical death and continues in a new form. This gives hope to those who have lost loved ones and seek answers to life's greatest questions. Swarnlata Mishra's case is such a window that provides insight into the hidden layers of reality, into a world where past and present meet, where an Indian little girl can get a second chance at life through another woman's memories. The story reminds us to live with open hearts and minds. Reality is always more wonderful and complex than we are capable of imagining. In Swarnlata's case, 3 different lives intertwined in one child's consciousness, showing that the soul's journey might be infinite and eternal. And although Swarnlata is now retired and rarely speaks of her childhood memories, her case forever changes the lives of those who encounter it. Because this story is not only about Swarnlata, Biya, and Kamlesh, but about all of us, and about the possibility that our existence transcends what we see and experience. The soul's journey continues, and we are all part of this infinite adventure.